At around 7:17 a.m. on the 30th of June 1908, near the Podkamennaya Tunguska River in Siberia, Russia, a gigantic explosion took place. The force of the blast flattened around 80 million trees and cleared an area more than 2,100 square kilometers, 800 square miles in size. For many years after this devastating impact, the true cause of the blast remained entirely unknown. The part of Siberia where the event took place was incredibly sparsely populated. Thus, fortunately, only 3 people were killed. Unfortunately, eyewitnesses to the event were also similarly few and far between. Generally, their stories were all quite similar. Many reported having seen a column of bluish light, nearly as bright as the sun, moving across the sky just before the event. Others noted a bright flash and a sound similar to artillery fire when the event occurred. Those closer to the explosion were knocked off their feet by a shockwave that broke windows and damaged buildings hundreds of kilometers away. One eyewitness gave the following testimony to a Russian meteorologist in the years after the event. At breakfast time, I was sitting by the house at Vanavara trading post facing north. I suddenly saw that directly to the north, over Unkul's Tunguska Road, the sky split in two and fire appeared high and wide over the forest. The split in the sky grew larger and the entire northern side was covered with fire. At that moment, I became so hot that I couldn't bear it, as if my shirt was on fire. From the northern side, where the fire was, came strong heat. I wanted to tear off my shirt and throw it down, but then the sky shut closed and a strong thump sounded and I was thrown a few meters. I lost my senses for a moment, but then my wife ran out and led me to the house. After that, such noise came, as if rocks were falling or cannons were firing. The earth shook, and when I was on the ground, I pressed my head down, fearing rocks would smash it. When the sky opened up, hot wind raced between the houses, like from cannons, which left traces in the ground like pathways, and it damaged some crops. Later we saw that many windows were shattered, and, in the barn, a part of an iron lock had snapped. This eyewitness was around 65 kilometers, 40 miles, away from the explosion when it took place, but the effects were felt much further afield than that. Indeed, tremors from the explosion were recorded by seismic stations across Eurasia, and airwaves from the blast were detected in Germany, Denmark, Croatia, the United Kingdom, and even in Washington, D.C. in America. In some places, the shockwave was equivalent to an earthquake measuring 5.0 on the Richter scale. In the days following the explosion, the night skies over Asia and Europe glowed, in some cases almost as bright as day. As bizarre as this incident was, the utter remoteness of Siberia made it difficult to investigate. With only 3 casualties and a handful of eyewitnesses, the world had other priorities. More than a decade passed before any serious attempt was made to determine what exactly had happened. Several expeditions were eventually mounted to the area, with one expedition leader noting with some surprise that there was no impact crater at ground zero of the blast. Instead, while trees for miles around had been toppled and scorched, the trees directly under the epicenter of the blast were still standing upright, although burned and stripped of their branches. By the 1960s, 50 years after the event, it had been established that the blast area was shaped like a gigantic butterfly, approximately 70 kilometers or 43 miles across, and with a body 55 kilometers or 34 miles in length. Within this blast zone, several mysterious holes and pothole bogs were located, some of which expedition leaders suspected might be meteorite craters. The laborious and expensive excavation of one such bog, however, revealed an intact tree stump at the bottom, and thus temporarily negated this theory. Expeditions in the 1950s and 1960s discovered microscopic spheres scattered throughout the area, with many buried in the ground or in the resin of felled trees. These spheres contained high concentrations of a nickel-iron alloy, often found in meteorites, along with numerous other metals that were unusual for the surrounding environment. Additionally, the spheres were distributed in a manner consistent with the airburst of an incoming asteroid. A meteorite strike then became the leading theory. The stripped trees, the distribution of the spheres, and other scientific analysis all indicated that an asteroid had entered the atmosphere and exploded several kilometers above the surface with an energy roughly 1,000 times greater than the bomb that fell on Hiroshima. Even the glow in the sky could be explained as ice particles shed by the incoming rock. As this theory emerged, it was challenged by many. Some insisted that a fragment of the meteorite must have survived, and that it should be found. Some proposed that the explosion had not been caused by an incoming asteroid at all, but by a weapons test or a crashing spaceship. Some insisted that it had been a comet rather than an asteroid. These theories, however, fell by the wayside as we came to understand more about the universe beyond our planet. We know now that the airburst of incoming asteroids far above the surface of the Earth is a routine occurrence. Usually, these cause so little harm as to be entirely unremarkable, but it is inevitable that an airburst similar to the Tunguska event will reoccur one day. Indeed, such events have occurred throughout history, with an average frequency of around 300 years. The Tunguska event was shrouded in mystery for many years, in part due to the remoteness of the area in which it took place. Let us hope that the next airburst of the same or greater magnitude takes place somewhere similarly remote.